So, the interactive oral assessments are a very unique type of assessment. I think the importance of interactivity plays a very important role in this form of oral assessments. To design questions for your interactive oral assessments, you always go back to your learning outcomes. The questions that you put in your interactive oral assessments can be very, very explicitly aligned with your learning outcomes. I like to start the questions based on a scenario that I probably have shared with my students in class. Quite often, it's related to a project that they might have done in class, perhaps a group work or a group project that they might have done in class. What that allows students to do is to take on particular roles. So, for example, if a student has played a role of a project manager in a group project, they are then able to use that role to then answer the questions that they answer. And I think it's important then for us to understand their role that they played, and then to direct the questions uniquely for those students. So I like to start generally by focusing on a scenario that they have done in class or they worked in class. Whilst that's important, it doesn't need to be. You can modify your question slightly different, but I find that that works really well. And what that does is it also allows me to change the scenario a little bit. So, for example, if they've worked on a particular scenario and they presented that in class, you can sort of change that, say, okay, well, this is what you talked about in class. Now let's think about it in a different way. Let's say that scenario changes, the settings changes. In if you're teaching business, for example, what if you were operating in a different country and there are different set of rules now apply? How would you apply these concepts? So it allows you to play around with that a little bit. Focus on how they would apply the knowledge as well. So it's not just simply asking students about explain to me the meaning of a particular concept, or explain to me the meaning of a term. I like to design my questions around explain to me how you would apply this particular concept or this particular content knowledge in this type of scenario. So students need to think about what the content is, they need to think about how they will be able to apply it, and then you could sort of probe them a little bit more if you want to, just to make sure that they really understand the concept by changing the questions around a little bit or changing the scenario around a little bit. I also like to explore the ability for the students to give me examples. So, for example, the students might say, I have applied this particular concept in this particular setting. I could then probe, okay, can you give me an example of what would happen if it doesn't work? Or can you give me an example of a situation where this thing worked really well? So that allows students to know the content really well, to be able to defend the concept that they've talked to you about. The questions can change to help you probe more in certain areas. Again, so if you um, ask a particular question and you know that a particular student is particularly good in a particular in an area, but maybe they are unable to articulate their answers effectively, perhaps because of English as a second language or a range of different issues. You can probe them a little bit. And I think this is what interactive oral allows me to do, is to be able to make those judgments in flight during assessments while I'm talking to my students. I can make those judgments. I say, look, I know that this one knows this answer really well, but they are unable to articulate that. So in many ways, interactive oral assessments then is a highly inclusive assessment. It allows the assessor, me in most cases, to be able to make those kind of judgments about the student's ability to perform, to be able to answer the questions effectively. And I can then modify my questioning styles. I can support the students to sort of elicit more information out of them.